Welcome to another video here on the Giant Take Podcast YouTube channel. All right, we made it to the next position on the list. We're getting into the month of April. That means we got to grind and get as many positions in here as we can before the NFL draft. So we're trying our best. We're up to cornerback. We have done, let's see if I can do this, quarterback, running back, offensive line, and edge. I think that's it. Okay, so now we're on cornerbacks. We have top 5, one special mention. We're going to go down the list. My name is Josh, and then I have my co-host Alex here with me. We do the Giant Take Podcast together. If you're not familiar with that, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the platforms, and we have here on the YouTube channel as well as social medias, which will be linked down below in the description. The way we do this is we organize, normally give a player comparison where they'll be graded, some pros and cons, and then we grade them out of 10 using categories. The ones for the cornerback position, it changes by position, is athleticism, instincts, man coverage, and zone coverage. So without further ado, Alex, I'm going to get right into it, and then we'll talk about this guy here, Andrew Booth Jr., cornerback 6, or the special mention. He is 6 foot, 194 pounds, out of Clemson, a junior coming into this NFL draft. And I'll send it to you, Alex. How are you? And let us know some pros and cons here on this guy out of Clemson.
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about some of these corners. This is a really deep cornerback class and a lot of solid players. So I'm excited to get talking about all of them here. And, a lot of, possibilities for the Giants specifically to take early in the first round or maybe late second or early second if they do fall. But here we have Andrew Booth Jr., Andrew Booth Jr. for me, he's got great length. He has a great burst and acceleration. He's got probably his biggest strength is his ball skills. I would say we're not really going to do comps for these guys here, for corners, because I kind of think it's tough to do a comp for corners. But if I were to do a comp for him, it would be Trayvon Diggs, a slightly less ball hawky Trayvon Diggs. For Andrew Booth Jr. I kind of like that comparison a lot now that I just thought of it. So enjoy, everyone. And I would also say he's also really aggressive in the run game, and that's something you like to see out of your corners. He's not one of those guys who's just kind of going to sit there and watch. He's going to get his hands dirty and get involved in the run game. A couple of his issues here. He didn't participate in the combine, so that's any of the kind of test drills. I don't believe he didn't run the 40. He didn't do a whole bunch of things here.
No, or the pro day activities.
Or pro day. So this is kind of indicative of the fact that he doesn't have very good long distance speed. His tackling is, despite being impactful in the running game, he's not the best tackler. So that's something that's going to need to improve at the NFL level. And like I mentioned before, his agility, his change of direction is not exactly the best either. So certainly some of his weak points, change of direction and long speed. His initial burst is good, but his long speed and agility leaves some things to be desired for sure.
And because he missed the reason he missed that time, pro day activities, NFL combine, quad injury. He's dealing with that right now. It was in pre-draft workouts, so something to keep in mind, which is why he's probably slipping down draft boards, and he's our special mention here. Moving towards his grade, probably still should slot in as that late first round pick, hopefully, if not early second round. I don't know how far this injury is going to take him down list. Athleticism, 6.5, instincts, 8.5, man coverage, 7, and zone coverage, 7.5, which brings to a total of 7.4 for Andrew Booth Jr., cornerback 6, or our special mention here. Now, we move on to the top 5, and we start out with Roger McCrary, cornerback 5, 5 foot 11 inches tall, 190 pounds, Auburn. He's a senior. Alex?
Yeah, with Roger McCrary, he's probably one of my favorite players in this draft class. I know I say that a lot. I feel like I say that every single video, but
no, I'm nodding my head a lot because I was going to agree with you on that. But yeah,
I say that constantly, but I actually mean it definitely with this guy. He's great in man and press coverage. That's really what he's known for. He'll get close. He's tough off the line of scrimmage. That's definitely something you see, and he is always tight to his man. And he's definitely more of a man corner than your, a zone corner. So that's something you do have to keep in mind. For the Giants, maybe not a big deal with the Wink Martindale system. He has good lateral speed and agility, something that's also important for a corner. He's a solid tackler. He also, despite not being maybe a specialty zone corner per se, he is still pretty solid in zone coverage, and he's got decent ball skills as well. Maybe not the same as someone like Andrew Booth Jr., some of the other guys we're going to get to a little bit later, but still solid in those areas and in those categories. In terms of his cons, he doesn't have elite athleticism, only ran a bit more than a 4.5 40 there for Roger McCreary, and sometimes he does get a little bit over aggressive, and you will see him get beat, and some of the better quarterbacks will be able to take advantage of him if he doesn't fix that in the NFL level. But Roger McCreary, maybe not the most big athletic freak, a little bit undersized, but a really good player who I think will be really solid. Maybe he's not going to be an elite corner, but I think he's going to be one of those guys who he'll be a strong CB2 for his entire NFL career.
Yeah, a similar con with McCreary with the sometimes like overcommitting, sort of similar to Booth when I saw watching his film. His con of like kind of not overcommitted, but he sometimes gets a little greedy and wants the ball, wants to get those pass deflections that I feel like, that's some stuff. That's a similar con between all college players and something that they'll most likely improve at the NFL level. McCreary had a total of 35 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 6 interceptions, and 30 passes deflected. Also 1 pick six at his time with Auburn, named a first-team All-American by the AP after his final year at Auburn. So we now move into his grade, another late first-round pick here. Athleticism, 6.5, instinct, 7.5, man coverage, an 8.5, and then zone coverage, a 7.5, putting our number 5 cornerback, Roger McCreary, at a 7.4 out of 10. We move to cornerback 4, Khair Elam, I believe is how you say his last name.
Khair Elam. Double I think, right? Yeah, double I.
Khair. Sorry. Khair Elam, 6'1", 191 pounds, Florida, and I believe that University of, right? So junior from the University of Florida.
Yeah, Elam is kind of a guy I wasn't familiar with until very, very recently, but I was watching a bit of his tape, and I was certainly impressed. He's a great tackler. He's aggressive, similar to McCreary. He's very tight to his man in man coverage. But I feel like he's maybe a tiny bit better in zone coverage, so that's something maybe that is an advantage. Obviously, we have him higher or more highly ranked than Roger McCreary. He's got great speed and athleticism, and that's really what sets him apart. He ran a 4.39 40. He's certainly quick. He's got great size and length at 6'1", 191 pounds, like you mentioned. And he's just a really solid corner all around. Maybe not as strong in one facet, whether it's man coverage or zone coverage, but he's got all the physical tools to be very good at the NFL level. Couple of cons with him. In some of the film I've watched, in some of the run defense plays, he almost seems like not interested in stopping the run. So that's something that maybe he needs to work on a bit, get a little bit more excited in the run game. And he's also, like we mentioned with the last couple, sometimes a bit over aggressive, and that may come back to haunt him at the NFL level. Again, needs to be a little bit more disciplined when he moves out of college. So something to keep an eye out for, and defensive coordinators and defensive back coaches will need to help him with when he gets to the next level.
It's funny you say that, Alex, about the running, the running back plays, or the plays involving a run play. One of the top 3 guys also I feel like that's just a cornerback thing. When I was watching film on all the top 3 guys who we'll go to very soon, there were just some plays where it was a run play, and they just didn't look like they were involved in it or even wanted to get involved at all. They're just like, all right, my linebackers, defensive linemen got that. And I think that has to do with trust in the defense. It also can mean they're tired from the play or 2 plays before, 3 plays before. But yeah, it's something funny that you noted on. So I just wanted to kind of circle back to that for a second. His career stats in 30 games played: 78 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 20 passes defended, and 5 interceptions. So moving to his grade, a mid to late first round pick, athleticism 8, instinct 7, man coverage 8, zone coverage 7.5, which totals out to a 7.6 for Khair Elam, our cornerback 3. cornerback four.
Yeah.
Cornerback four. Now on to our cornerback three. Let's do that now. Trent McDuffie, the 5'11", 193-pound Washington senior. Alex, what's the report on him?
So Trent McDuffie's an interesting one. I've seen people have him as high as CB1 and as low as CB6. So he's certainly someone that's kind of opinionated. People have different opinions about. We have him here right smack in the middle of those two numbers at number 3. He's a great run defender. He definitely gets involved in the run game, and he does defend the run. He's a good tackler. He's solid in man and zone. I feel like he's probably the most even in man and zone out of any corner in this class. He's got good ball skills and anticipation. Maybe not as good as someone like Booth or some other players that we're going to get to before the end of this video, but certainly good in that aspect as well. Good instincts. He's also a good athlete. And that's something that's important. He's not like a insane athlete, but he's certainly an above average athlete. He doesn't have great length. That's one of his cons. He's a little bit undersized, Trent McDuffie. So something that may impact him at the next level. Doesn't really project to be a slot guy, despite his size. None of these guys really are. And again, the fun one, a little bit over aggressive at times. I want to, maybe it's the same for all of these guys, but you still want to put it on there. Because in college, sometimes a lot of these corners are a little bit over aggressive, and that's something that you still need to mention, even if it's true for a lot of them. So still put that on the list here. But I like McDuffie a lot, and we'll see how he does at the next level, but we have him here as CB3.
This guy's got a lot of tackles. 71 in his career total, or 94 in his career total, 71 solo tackles. He has 4.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and 3 forced fumbles. Now moving on to his grade, mid-first round pick. Athleticism 7.5, instincts 8, man coverage 8, zone coverage 8, totaling out to a 7.9 out of 10 for now our cornerback 3, Trent McDuffie. We'll go from 3 to 2. Can I count down? Yes, I can. Derek Stingley Jr. I would say these top 2 guys before, a month or 2 ago, we're kind of debating who's number 1, who's number 2. Now the clear-cut number 1 and number 2 on most lists is the same, although I still see Stingley Jr. at number 1 on some lists out there. 6'1", 195 pounds, junior, coming from LSU.
Yeah, a certain someone who was at number 1 ended up running a 4.440 at 6'3", and that made it kind of a little bit of a different story, which no one expected him to run that quick, if we're being honest ourselves. So it is a little bit different. Stingley, for me, is someone who's really weird to evaluate because you're really just going off his freshman season, and that obviously was, 2 years ago now? Tough, right? You don't know. He's dealt with injuries, and I think that will bring him down, right? Injuries are something that linger. They're not something that go away. Sometimes, I'll get to this in a minute, but sometimes there's been reports of a little bit of laziness on the part of Derek Stingley Jr. Can't speak to that myself, can only speak to what I see on the field and on the tape. In his freshman year, you don't really see that. In later years, sophomore, junior, a little bit. But then again, maybe is that some injury fatigue, stuff like that? You don't really know. But I want to get to his pros first. He's got great speed. He's physical, like a couple of the other guys we've mentioned, but he's extremely physical, and he was the best corner in the country as a freshman, and that's something you don't see a lot from freshman corners. He's got great ball skills and anticipation. His instincts are definitely top tier, and he's good in man and zone coverage, but definitely specializes in man. He does, like I mentioned before, seem sometimes a little bit fatigued/lazy on tape. And again, like I mentioned before, only 1 year of solid tape and the injury history make him a really, really tough grade. Probably one of those guys that you could have probably as a 3rd round pick if you really wanted to, or you could have him as an early 1st round top 5 talent. We're kind of in between, I guess. But Derek Stingley Jr., a really interesting prospect. I'm going to be fascinated to see where he goes in the draft.
And now going into his stats a little bit, total of 73 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 0 sacks, 6 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. We now move into Stingley's grades here, starting with He's an early first-round pick. I would say early to mid-first-round pick. Athleticism, an 8. Instincts, 8. Man coverage, 8.5. And zone coverage, 8.5, totaling up to an 8.0 for our cornerback 2, Derek Stingley Jr. Now, on to our cornerback 1. If you didn't know, well, you should check out the most recent video before this, or like 2 or 3 videos ago now, on Ahmad Sauce Gardner, which is out. A complete draft profile on him I did a couple of days ago, so you can definitely go check that out. And we're going to talk about him here now because he's the cornerback 1 on this list. 6'3", 200 pounds, a junior out of Cincinnati.
What this guy does at 6'3", 200 pounds, runs a 4.4 40, has one of the bigger lengths we've ever seen coming out of the draft. It's just truly impressive for this guy, and he really deserves the Sauce nickname for sure. He's great in man and zone coverage, but again, really specializes in man coverage. 0 touchdowns allowed in his entire collegiate career. He's also a solid tackler. He's effective in the run game. He's not scared to tackle in the run game and get his hands dirty. Like I mentioned before, great length again, and he's got great ball skills. He's someone who gets interceptions. He's able. He has a nose for the ball. That's what I kind of was looking to say there. Certainly got a nose for the ball. Cons, really only one here. He does get beat over the top at times. Maybe. I wouldn't say necessarily he doesn't have the speed because we saw he ran the 4.4 40, but maybe he doesn't have that long distance speed where he does get beat over the top. So that might be a concern against some of these really fast receivers that you have in the NFL, and that's something that's a con for him. And then he is a little bit touchy. He could get penalized in the NFL a bit more than he did in college as well. So something to think about, but really like Sauce Gardner. And I'm, excited to see where he goes as well. And I think the Giants may be a possible destination.
I'm going to take what I have from the video here so I don't have to look for more information. In his true freshman year, he had 31 tackles and 3 interceptions, 2 of which he returned for touchdowns. He also tallied 11 pass defended and 8 pass breakups. And then in 2020, that led him to be the top of his depth chart. And then in 2021, he was a consensus All-American, the ACC Defensive Player of the Year in all 3 seasons. He was an All-American, I believe, in 2019, 2020, and 2021. He was all first-team AC. I think in all 3 seasons, 2019, 2020, and 2021, Gardner was all first-team ACC. So basically a 3-time first-team All-State ACC for Ahmad Sauce Gardner. And then got the nickname Sauce from his love of sauce by his youth football coach when he was 6 years old. So that's something I found out there when doing research for that video. His grade, he's a top 10 talent, early first-round pick. We had him going to the New York Giants with their 7th pick in our 1.0 mock draft. Got a YouTube comment about it saying, we don't need quarterbacks. We don't need quarterbacks. I already addressed that in the video, but I can do it again now. The Giants still need cornerbacks, okay? They do, whether you want to admit it or not. I mean, Alex, you can really speak on it if you want to. I think it's pretty obvious. But anyway, you got me shaking my head over that. Anyway, athleticism 7.5, instincts 9, man coverage 9.5, zone coverage 8, tallying out to a total of 8.5 out of 10 for our cornerback number 1, Gardner, Ahmad Sauce Gardner. So with that, thank you so much for watching. We got another one in, another one down, the cornerbacks. Drop a like on this video, subscribe below, and you can subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media. That's all in the YouTube description. And check out all the other places here on the YouTube channel, all the other rankings, a bunch of content for you. But for right now, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.